much, and welcome everyone to our Headset Sports webinar. This one is focused on creating a champion mindset. And in regards to what is happening in sport today, I think this is a very helpful presentation to bring forward. And we're going to have opportunities to be able to interact with each other, but if you have questions along the way, I have the chat function open on Zoom, so you can send privately or in public your questions. If you want to unmute yourself, you can as well, so we'll get to those. So if you have questions or comments, please let me know, and we'll get to them. And in regards to an agenda for us for today, we have three different agenda pieces. One is a very quick introduction. And then also with our introduction, we're going to be going through what is Headset, but we'll do that pretty quickly in regards to what Headset is. The majority of the time is going to be building that champion or championship program and mindset. And I'm with Dr. Jason Galea, who is the co-founder of Headset. And I have the 2019 Coach of the Year in Major League Rugby, Rob Hoadley. So Jay will take on the individual parts, so the individual athlete part and some important aspects of building a champion mindset. And then we're going to transition over to Rob, and he's going to go into more of the team components and how he has and how you can infuse some of the mental skills components and some of the headset components as well. So before we get into those aspects, I would like to just briefly go over what our mission is at Headset. And I think our mission is pretty important for what's happening in the world today, and the world focused on sports. So Headset strives to improve the mental strength of individuals around the world. More specifically, it's athletes. We work with athletes outside of, with people outside of sport as well, but primarily athletes. But it really is important to be able to look at technology and data to be able to help those athletes. And our team, and we have a wonderful team of sports psychs, coaches, former athletes at various skill level and level of playing. These team of experts deliver the most effective mental training exercises by using sophisticated algorithms. And as we get into what Headset is, this artificial intelligence machine learning part is pretty important for us in regards to understanding deeper what an athlete may be undertaking, and also the group as a whole. So it's the why. So why is this important now? One is our current sort of state in regards to sport. There are so many stops and starts. A lot of times athletes don't know exactly when their season will begin. A lot of athletes, their season has kind of been postponed. For some, it's been canceled. So this is a new sort of undertaking for athletes and coaches. So the mental skill, strength, and mental health component is more important than ever before. And if there's a silver lining to COVID in regards to this mental skill or mental health, is that we're looking at athletes and also teams as a whole more holistically. So it's not all about performing, even though that's so important and will become important again, but it really is about the athlete and the group more holistically. So how are they? How can we help? How can we develop? And that's something that for Headset and our mission, we've been able to do, and hopefully we'll continue to do in the near future once sport comes back to performing at a higher level of intensity, but also in regards to the amount of time they spent. And here's, based on the why, one of the quotes that we have from people who have used, and this is from Graham Johnson. He's the head coach of a men's hockey coach in the NCAA, and it's the Division III team. And he states one of the greatest facets about this program being Headset is that the coach can just set their players up, and then the headset system takes that on, right? So that part is outside the coach. So, and Jay will talk about how headset is performed, but from a coaching perspective, the mental skill is so important, but headset takes care of it. And then the coach has more time to be able to infuse those mental skills into the team. And that's kind of where we're going with our presentation today. And then next we have, what is Headset? So as mentioned before, it's a mental training program developed by sports psychs, coaches, and athletes. We use artificial intelligence. So every Headset, the person who joins Headset has its own customized program, right? So no two athletes go through Headset the same, right? And that's very important because in other aspects of sport, athletes at our different places, right? Strength and conditioning wise, nutrition wise, technique or technically based. Same should be said for the mental skills or mental well-being part. We all have different needs, and we have to be able to target specific solutions for the particular athlete. And in regards to Headset, we'll be talking about that a little bit more. And then final piece for me, and then Dr. J and Rob will be talking about this through Headset. We have 5 core pillars that we look at primarily, right? And this is through all the research that we've done, all the applied work that we've done and put into it. It narrowed down to 5 different areas. One is awareness. So is that athlete or the group as a whole aware of their body, how they kind of experience pressure, their skills development areas? Confidence. Do they believe in themselves and their capabilities? Number 3, the stress or regulation piece. Can they handle pressure and stress? Number 4 is resilience. Can they bounce back? Right? And there's a short-term and long-term piece to resilience. And then finally, we have motivation. So that's a little intro to Headset. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. J, and he's going to go over some particular parts of Headset, of how it can be used for that champion mindset for the individual.
So thank you for that, Peter. So we've covered the why Headset is so important. We've discussed what it is, but now understanding how it all works together, we look at the how of this program working for athletes and teams. And what we see here is a program that's fully encompassing for athletes, teams, and for coaches as a whole. Our program allows athletes to work on individual skills, which are connected to an individual dashboard that they will have for themselves. That individual dashboard, which shows all of the little workouts that they've been doing throughout the process of Headset, which we'll cover in a few seconds here, allows them to accumulate points and get a good visual of how they're doing and what they're working on. On the team side, a coach can get a chance to see an overview of how his or her team as a whole is doing month to month throughout the entire season. And it's a live stream of data because we are constantly gathering that information on a weekly basis as the athletes do their little workouts of the week that we'll talk about. As Peter mentioned earlier, no 2 athletes will have the same path. What they will get is they will get their monthly wows or their weekly wows from a monthly assessment that's given to them. So each month, the athletes are reassessed as to how they're doing, how they're performing, how they're feeling. And each week, we present to them a wow. A wow stands for a workout of the week. That wow is something that allows the athlete to accumulate points. And this is our gamification element that's built into our system. The athlete can track how he or she is doing, some of the things that they're working on a consistent basis, but at the same time, if there are certain little elements that they enjoy doing, they can go and review those elements. For example, one of the most popular elements of our product is our video library. And we have many athletes that can go back into their bank of videos that have been sent to them and review the ones that feel best to them, the ones that provide them with confidence, that warm hum that allows them to feel more confident, calm, collective, and ready to play whenever they want, as many times as they want. It's just one of the many elements that we have here. And with this dashboard, we're also able to see a calendar. That calendar helps coaches organize their teams as to what's going on week to week. So how does this work? Each month, the team, the athlete, the individual is assessed as to how they are doing and how they are performing. How they respond each month allows the system to recalibrate the wows that they need to be successful for the week ahead, month ahead. From there, that assessment allows the athlete to see exactly how he or she is doing at the present moment. From there, we're able to build on that mental skill set. From there, we're able to send them prescribed wows, workouts of the week, that are best suited for them at this point in time. The athlete dashboard is something that allows the athlete to stay organized with every wow he or she receives. They're going to get a chance to see how their wows are doing. Are they complete or not complete? Reminders can be sent to them to let them know, hey, you've just been sent a wow. Don't forget to do this. But at the same time, we're also able to track practices as well as how they feel they've done in games. Here, you're seeing an example of a wow, the 3 C's of resilience. This is one of hundreds of wows that could be sent to an athlete. This one allows the athlete to sit down, watch a video, sit down and ponder the message sent to them, and also make a few little notes that helps visualize with inside them the things that they need to do to be most resilient and be the top athlete they want to be. From here, as we move on, we're able to see more things that are in line with our athlete dashboard. We can track practices, games, but most importantly, we're able to really get good feedback from the athlete as to how he or she feels they're performing. That helps with the realignment of the algorithm that's put in place to make sure that this athlete is ready to perform. This is what makes us feel we are in a live status with this athlete. Now, the video library is something that's probably one of our most popular elements to our system. Athletes will be sent things on a weekly basis as part of their wows, but it's also something that the athlete can go back to and create almost like a montage of videos that make them feel good, make them calm, or maybe even pump them up, whatever it may be that they need to prepare to play. So it's one of the things that we've gotten a lot of great feedback on. Now, when we look at our video library here, it's completely an array of different coaches, athletes, and whatnot that are sharing. But when we talk about a team element, this is the team dashboard. The team dashboard allows coaches or the person in charge of monitoring headset for the team to see how the team is doing on a monthly basis. This allows the coach or program overseer to see how they're doing monthly on the assessments as a whole for the team, the mental workout completions that they've done, the pre-competition checklist, and their post-competition checklist. It gives the coach an opportunity to see a complete overview of how that team is doing, especially when they talk about their performance. How are those performances being recorded, and what are those athletes saying that they're feeling like as they move forward to the week ahead? Now, another thing that I should add is what we're also able to do is we're also able to now look at the element of burnout. That's one of the things that we'll be talking about in future webinars, but it's a new element that we're adding to the headset product as a whole. And the huge element is our notifications. Our notifications is something that our coaches love because it's an internal little check mark that goes off to remind the athlete that they may have something that they need to do. And that could be completing a wow for the week, completing a performance debrief, or answering some questions that relate to burnout or what we refer to as practice effect that allows us to gather more data as to how that athlete is doing week to week and month to month. So at the end of the process, the amount of data that we're collecting on the individual athlete and the team as a whole is absolutely immense and something that's so valuable to cross-reference with actual team data that may be collected by each and every coach or statistician associated with every team. So with that, I want to hand things over to the one and only Rob Hoadley, who's really going to help us encapsulate developing that champion mindset. We've talked about the elements of headset that help the individual, which can help the team, but how does that all come together to really truly define and develop a champion mindset? So Rob, please feel free
And
to
Rob,
take it away.
you should have access. You're the host now.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump on now with my my screen. So let me know. Can you see that?
Totally.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, guys. Yeah, great to be here. Always enjoy sharing our thoughts on how we've done things in the past and what we can learn from everyone else as well. That's what's so great about the headset community. So thanks to Pete and Jay for the introduction. They've asked me to run through developing a championship mindset from a program building point of view, because as we go through this, the key for us is that they're on the front end building a lot of data sets, but for us as coaches on the back end, we've got to understand where does the technology and data lead us and what is the practical application, because that's what our role is. So just for today, to make it very simple so you can follow along, we're going to look at just three things. So just keep that in mind as we go. I'm going to start with looking at building our team values. Secondly, tactical periodization, which is a model adopted in rugby from soccer. Some may or may not be familiar with it, but we'll work through that. And then we'll end with the practical application of headset and how it helps across the entire program. Okay, so I want to just go back to a slide that Pete shared at the start. And before we get into it, I'd like you all to ask yourself a couple of questions. Firstly being, do you believe that mental skills are critical for success? And I have to believe the answer is yes, because you're here listening to this and you're in the headset community. So it has to be yes, I'm sure. Secondly, if we lead off from that, as it shows on the graphic there, what percentage of time would you say that in your weekly training week goes to physical training time or technical training time, and what goes to mental training time? And it would be my experience that a lot of people talk about developing mental skills, but don't really have any systematic process in place. Another question to ask yourself, do your athletes within your program understand what is expected of them and what tools are available to grow their mental skills? Because without understanding where they need to get to, it's very, very difficult for them to actually get on that pathway. How do you currently track and monitor your athlete well-being and mental skill development? And do you build customized pathways for the individuals within your program? That's a critical thing we'll start to look at. And do you build mental skills that are aligned with your team values and your game model? And that may not make sense, that question at the moment, but hopefully it will now as we move through the presentation. So I want to start with just sharing with you how we built our values. I was lucky enough to work with San Diego Legion in the professional rugby league in America. And one of the first things we did, it was an unbelievable sports experience, because to start and build from a new professional league is a very rare opportunity. And where we wanted to start with through our values. We thought that was the most important thing. And you can see the graphic on the left there. We handed the guys actually a book at the start when we all met. And the first story in the book, it's Chop Wood, Carry Water, fantastic book. And the first story in there is about how you build your house every day. So we wanted to create a graphic of a house that aligned to the Legion values. So as you can see there, the foundation is discipline equals success, or even we talked about discipline equals freedom, which is a great concept. And then we have our two pillars, compete and contribute. And then at the top, we have the roof, which is connect, our number one value. And you see the yin and the yang in the roof, because we've got hard skills on the left of compete and soft skills of contribute. And once we get all of those in place, then we can connect. And there's a lot of things we talk about in terms of connection. I won't go into it too much now. But ultimately, everything has to be clearly defined there as well, which we would do for the players. But the key thing that I want to look at now is when we talk about building the value system for your program, just on this graphic is the pillars. we found it very, very useful to dig into the unconscious drivers or highest values of each individual player. As we know, every player within our program has a different perspective, motivation, influence, interest. So this stems from a lot of the work from Simon Sinek. You know, you're probably familiar with it, or you can look it up on YouTube. And he always talks about starting with your why. And for us, by showing at the start that we understand and care why they're here and what drives them individually, we can attach them to the team values. So where you can see compete and contribute, and then you see the different values by the side, we actually say to our individual players, we say compete, we say contribute, but really what we want to know is, what are your highest values that you're going to bring to compete and contribute? We really don't think creating values is about putting 5 words on a wall and saying you've got to do that with no guidance, because it doesn't ring true in the individual. So we're trying to attach them to what we're doing as a team, and ultimately through aligning everyone's individual hierarchy of values to our team values, we create an emotional attachment to the team mission. And really long-term learning, which is, as coaches we're involved in, is information plus emotion. So we need to capture the individual emotion, and we do it by telling them we know and care about their individual hierarchy of needs. And by doing that, we can create a collective learning environment where everyone sees that what's good is for the team is good for me. And ultimately, as coaches, that we want to be transformative, not transactional. We need to create these deep connections. And that's obviously our number one value. So here's the key thing. You know, why am I going through all this information? Here's the key thing to take away here. We need to give all of our players a voice and a means of expressing themselves. But to do that, we need to help cultivate that voice through education and building confidence. And that's where Headset comes in. Okay, so we started with the values, and now I said we're going to introduce a concept of tactical periodization. So what does that mean? A brief introduction is, our first exposure would have come probably from Jose Mourinho, who some of you may or may not know, went to Chelsea in 2004-05, won the double in his first year, started talking about tactical periodization. It was adapted to rugby, my sport, by various coaches. Eddie Jones, a big one, some of the New Zealand coaches, John Mitchell brought it to USA. Tactical periodization basically states that any physical, technical, or psychological action has a tactical intention. And it's an attempt to be time efficient and make sure every part of the training program is aligned to preparing for the game demands simultaneously. So the takeaway there is, your psychological or mindset that we're looking at here, actions, need to be aligned to where you're going. It's not just an add-on. And here's where I'll give you a graphic of tactical periodization here, so you can sort of get an image in your mind. So firstly here, just look to the far right of the screen. Everything you do in your program is underpinned by your culture. And that's why we start with values, and that's why we start with our why. Everything is underpinned by your culture, always starts there. And then if we start to look through the bubbles here and the circles, so on the left-hand side, the blue side, firstly, you have to identify and know deeply the demands of your game. And then on the right-hand side, you can create your own identity. So again, looking through the bubbles here on the left, the red bubbles, your performance problems, basically, what's the aim of your game? Is it score a basket, score a try, score a goal? So that's your aim. And then you have constraints. Constraints are basically the rules. So they present your performance problems. I have this aim, and I can't just, run with the ball, punch someone, and then dunk it in the basket. That's illegal. So there's certain constraints there. Your principles and sub-principles of play can be identified as the main game moments. So they could be identified originally in soccer in this model. It was quite simply identified as attack, defense, transition from attack, and transition from defense, which holds true for many games, basketball, ice hockey. Then, obviously NFL, rugby, it gets a lot more complicated, but you can identify the main moments of the game that you need to train and be prepared for. And then game demands is your physical game demands, i.e. you need to know how the length of time the ball is in play in your game, How far do we need to be able to run? What speeds do we need to be able to run? What's our work to rest ratio? How many collisions? And in doing all, having that information, you know your game. Then on the right-hand side, once you've identified and simplified your performance problems, principles of plays, and game demands, you can create your own tactical solutions, required capabilities of your players, and your training methodology emerges from this information. And then in the middle, you get the game model, which is what we're striving for. And once you know your game model, you know the way that you want to play your game. And just as an example here, we have the same performance problems in rugby, right? We have the same things that we need to achieve. But let me tell you, South Africa have very, very, very different tactical solutions to Japan, because South Africa, big, physical, hard nose, want to go down the middle, take you on. Japanese, they can't do that. They can't compete with them physically. So they say, right, we're going to be the best movement team in the world. We're going to be creative, innovative. We're going to be fast, move the ball away from the big players. So they have similar performance problems, but different tactical solutions. The whole program must be built to support that, including your mindset. It's a different kind of mindset, okay? So, so that will help you have basically the end in mind in everything you do in your program, okay? So I've introduced the values, I've introduced tactical periodization and the game model there. And, you know, the question is, why share this information? Well, we feel it's very important to be able to zoom out and take an aerial macro view of how you develop the whole program, which allows you to keep the end in mind in everything you do, i.e. how do we want to play and how does the training program take us there, lead us there? So when we see everything from a tactical periodization context, we can start to plan how we effectively and holistically implement the psychological development into the weekly and yearly training program as a complement to our tactical needs, in the same way that we would do with physical or technical skill development, okay? So when we understand our organizational values and plan from a tactical periodization perspective, we can truly utilize the unique offerings of Headset to get maximum value, okay? So developing our psychological needs, the question I'm sure you all want to ask is, how does this look in reality? And this is really the crux of where I want to get to and discuss now. And the question should be that you're asking, how do we embed psychological skill development into the weekly training plan? Clearly, we want to look at characteristics and skills aligned to our values, but ultimately you can't have the characteristic without developing the skill. If a skill needs to be developed, you can't just say, okay, go away and develop it. It needs to be created, nurtured, and learned. And it's all about upgrading behaviors aligned to the team values, missions, and tactical solutions. So Headset ultimately provides, you know, from a coaching perspective, from my point of view, it provides a low maintenance way, because it's automated, of ensuring players are consistently adding tools to their mental skills toolbox. And again, as the guys discussed, it all comes back to these 5 pillars. But ultimately, what you learn within those 5 pillars can apply to your team values in the way that we said, because you want what's important to the individual to come into what's important to the team. So you allow what they're learning there in various things that are interesting to them to come back to the team, okay? And ultimately, Jay and Pete took you through the individual process, but what's crucial to me as a coach is the team element of this, and experiential learning, how we deal with the information. So we don't really learn through consumption, we learn through creation or co-creation in the case of a group. And we have to be active, right? So we have to take notes, ask questions, do exercises, solve problems critically, and participate. So players will do this on Headset, again, in an automated way, that as a coach, not having to do too many checkups, you know the players are doing their work, and they'll build up their own personal notebook of notes and exercises. I mean, ultimately here, how many people believe here that what you put in is what you get out? I guess all of us here. So you have to be putting something in to get out. The more you put in here, the more you're going to get out of it. And we said earlier that information combined with emotion becomes long-term memory. So we need to engage the players in the process. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. So I would even recommend, before I go into my tips, I would recommend that whenever you learn something, learn with the intention of teaching or presenting the material in future to someone else. Because, for instance, right now, if you were listening to this and you knew you were going to have to teach this to someone else, would you take better notes? I think you probably would. Would you listen more intently? Would you ask better questions? Would your focus be better? So that's what I always encourage the players as well. Learn with the intention of teaching to someone else. Okay, so now we get on to the practical application for your program. I'll give you kind of 4 ways that we went through and really used the information with the team. So one idea to start with would be a simple way: split your group into mini teams, let's say groups of 5, whatever might be most relevant in your group. And after they've been working on headset for a little while, get them in their groups to report back on the pillars. So you can split them into 5 groups. They do their workouts of the week. They get together, they discuss it, they engage in it, they understand what's important to them from the information, and then they present back to the group: here's resilience, self-awareness, self-regulation. And all of a sudden, this information is coming to life, and there's emotion involved. It's what's important to your players, and they're interacting and now taking a new life of its own with the information they're learning. We actually had a great example, not this season, the season before, where at a point in the season we asked our players, we have our values, but we want to bring more stories to the values. So they selected 5 players that had actually previously won championships around the world: Fiji, South Africa, England, New Zealand, and America. And those guys told stories about what drove them towards the championship. Our guys said, right, these are the 3 stories that are most relevant for us. And for compete, they said ruthless was the key thing for them. For contribute, they said humble was the most important thing to them. And then that took on an absolute life of its own, just through those guys sharing those stories. It's very, very powerful. So again, the key being you want you want to harness your individual development on headset for collective strength. Secondly, another great way to interact with the information, there's a legacy piece here which you could explore. So you could get your mini groups to interview ex-players. You could get them to interview fans and people that care deeply about your program, and share the culture and experiences that are bigger than themselves, those players that are in the program at the moment. That's a very powerful way of interacting with the information as well. So they could go and interview those people on resilience or whatever is important to them at that stage. A third way that leads into is, Jay and Pete mentioned the video library, which is very, very popular on headset. Well, you could create your own video library as well. So as you do these presentations, you start filming them and you put them into your video library, or you film your ex-players, or you get your fans involved, and then you have a legacy piece within your video library as well that's there for future generations of your teams as well. So that can be very powerful and a lot of fun for the players. And again, if they know that their information is going to be in a video library for years to come, you better believe they're going to put some more work into it and make it good. So that's a great way of doing things. Another one, which is an interesting one to me, is you could explore with your players how certain psychological characteristics can be relative to particular moments of the game. So for instance, an obvious one here is a goal line stand in defense kind of aligns to resilience, right? You need to bring your hard skills there. You need to compete. Conceding a touchdown, conceding a score, maybe it's stress management that comes in there, and that might be a softer skills. You might need to connect back to your breath, but those are relative to certain moments of the game. And I would also stress the importance of coaching the downtime in games is critical. So for instance, in the game of rugby, let's say it's an 80-minute game. Let's say the ball in play times are 36, 37 minutes. We've got 43 minutes there of 80 minutes. Are you coaching for those 43 minutes? I don't mean coaching in the game, but are you preparing the players to do the right things in those downtimes? It's very critical as well. So in those moments, you can align the skills that you're working on in headset. Another one that's preparing relative to particular moments of the game. Then headset is also relative to particular moments of preparation. So, for instance, a very big thing that, you know, as a coaching staff, we've always played with is how do you interact with your non-squad the week of a game? So you announce your team and you've got a lot of disappointed men, women, boys, girls in your group. So what happens to them for the rest of the week? Let's say you announce your team on Wednesday, you play Saturday. What's their course of action? And is there a communication touch point? Well, what we could do is here, we actually can assign a leader of the non-squad, and the leader of the non-squad can be in charge of checking in everyone's done their headset workouts, and maybe those guys could look into giving a presentation back to the playing squad about how are they going to, for us as Legion, it would be like, how am I going to contribute for the rest of this week? So that gets them out of themselves and thinking about the environment. Plus, if they have to present it to the team, they better do it. You know, they're making a commitment. So even though they're disappointed, they're getting back onto the team values. And so that would be a contribute, but they also part of that could be their self-awareness that they work on, but also connecting back to the team mission. We still have a very, very important role here. Plus, we're still engaged with the coaches. We're still communicating. An injured player, you know, could be out for a long time and could feel forgotten, but all of a sudden they're on headset and they're working on their motivation. And the coach can see that. Okay, that's a great tool for the injured player as well. So, so there's some nice practical ways that we found of working with headset. You know, just as a conclusion here, and you know, I'll finish by asking another question after this, but the key point that I'm trying to get across, and I know I've probably introduced a bit of information here, is to see where any form of training, in this case headset, can have the most impact in your program. You have to keep the end in mind. And the end in mind, in the example that I'm giving here, is our game model or performance vision. Okay, so it's critical we educate on the whole picture of what we're preparing for: tactical, technical, physical, and psychological. And the biggest outcome for everything we must do, including bringing headset into the program, is you have to get better at your sport. So we have to get better at rugby. That's the only reason we'll bring something in. Not just bigger, not just faster, not just fitter, but better players and better thinkers. And as you go up levels, everyone at the top level is adequately physically and technically prepared. Every team. So what's the point of difference? It's the tactics and the psychology, which essentially is training the brain. Okay, so with the program, how are you going to see as a coach? How are you going to measure success in adapting headset? Because it doesn't necessarily mean all of a sudden you're going to start scoring more points. So you can't take it like that. But how are you going to measure success? The key thing that we feel is you will see more compliance and less direction from the top when it comes to working on the mindset. The players can start to own their values, own their mission, own their mental skill development, and begin to thrive in the most pressurized moments of the game. Because what we're really doing is preparing our players to thrive in the most pressurized moments of the game. And the question that I would ask in doing that, would it help to have a low maintenance, customized, automated system to give players those tools to develop their mental skills? Because that's really what headset's doing. And then just to give a story, to bring it to life, you just imagine yourself, picture yourself as a coach. You're getting ready for a meeting. You've got all your notes ready. You've got your presentation ready. You're going into the meeting room. Sometimes it's nice to go in a little bit early. You go in 10 minutes early and just catch the temperature of the room and see how your players are. And you walk in one day and you see a young player and they're in their notepad, and a senior player says to him, "Oh, what are you working on there?" and the young player says, I'm just going through my the ABCs of self-talk, because I've just been working on this on Headset, the ABCs of self-talk. And the senior player goes, oh wow, that sounds pretty interesting. And the young player starts then explaining to the senior player, oh, going through these details of what I've been working on. Then the senior player goes, that's brilliant. Have you thought about it like this? Because I actually played in another country with another system. Then those guys start interacting. Those discussions are what drives your programs forward. And that is how you harness the IQ and the emotion of your group, because they're all fully invested and they're all fully contributing. And through sharing the impact of your work on Headset, our players can create deeper connections and drive the culture that all championship teams talk about. Because when teams win, they talk about the culture and they talk about the connections. Okay, and that's what we're looking to drive through Headset, as well as those specific mental skills. So I've thrown a bit out there. Hopefully it all made sense. I tried to keep it simple. I tried to keep it simple by going through the values, the tactical prioritization and practical application. But really, just to close, guys, we love to talk mindset. We love to speak development here. We're thinking about it all the time. And what would be great is for you guys to think about how Headset could enhance your specific programs through practical implementation, because as I said, it's different for everyone. Everyone's got a different game model. So we'd love to hear back from you guys about other ways. That I was explaining some, but you could think of other ways that would really benefit your group. That'd be fantastic to hear from you. And at this point, I'll hand back to Jay and Pete, because they'll be able to also give you some contact details and some sort of further resources where you can find Headset and look for some more information. Okay, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. Really appreciate it. That was wonderful. There's just some additional resources that we do have for individual athletes and also teams. So we're doing this weekly, being on Instagram with IG Live Talks. Our webinars that we just have, we have those 1 or 2 per month. We'll share information on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Jay does some amazing podcasts and has quite a few that he's done and continues to do those. So we're just trying to, as a group, bring forward the information that could help individual athletes and also teams as a whole. And I love what Coach Hovey put together in regards to that co-creation piece. Coach, I loved it, right? In regards to just us being able to come together. And if there's anything that we can do as you're putting together the macro piece and then going into the micro piece and trying to put all of those pieces together. And we know that the mindset piece is one piece, but if we can have a hand in helping you out and going through that development process with you, that's what gets, I know, got me excited as listening to Coach Rob put that forward.
Fantastic stuff, Rob. Fantastic. Just listening to you speak brought me back to those countless hours we spent with each other this past season. And you could blink and hours would go by. Yeah. So for those of you that are in attendance today, we thank you so much for being here. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask. But as you can tell, and as Rob hinted to, we love working with teams, we love working with coaches, athletes, but we love the space that we're in. And if Headset can help you or help your team, or maybe even an individual athlete that you have that might be struggling to find focus, might find a difficult time working on controlling their emotions, anxiety, stress, reach out to us and let us know how we can help you in your programs. We're finding so many different programs that we're working with now that it's so exciting for us, because we're having the opportunity to work with sports that neither of us, the three of us, have ever had any experience with. So it's so exciting. And again, if there's ways that we can help you, we'd love to be a part of your team and helping your team succeed.
What about, let us know before we kind of end our time, are there any questions or comments or thoughts that you want to bring forward, either through the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself as well, if you feel comfortable? Please feel free.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so we'll conclude our time together. Coach, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. Jay, thanks again as well for jumping on and doing this great work together. And what we will do is this is recorded. We're going to put it together, and then we're going to send it out to you all as well. So you'll have this, and we'll have our contact in that email as well. So if you want to reach out to us, please feel free. So thank you so much during your busy week getting together with us. So we'll call it a day, and we'll wrap things up. But hopefully this is us continuing to connect with each other as we continue with our sports. All right, everyone.
Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for being here.